And a lot to discuss, a lot to talk about right now, Congressman. First off, I hope you're taking care of the good people there in Columbia, South Carolina, first and foremost, because I have a lot of family members that are living there. So let's just make sure that they're all okay, first and foremost. That needs to be at the front of mind here.
100%. I'm a Gamecock through and through, and so that is always a priority. We've got to take care of the Gamecocks.
How has it been for you with this intersection of politics and college sports? Do you welcome it? Does it make you nervous? Do you shy away from it? Is it something that has to happen? I'm just interested, sort of your 1,000-foot view of these worlds colliding that I'm sure for the majority of your life, you never even really thought you would get anywhere close to having a hand in.
No, it's quite strange, actually. I mean, I grew up, obviously I love college sports, have always loved college sports, followed, recruiting religiously and all the games and where people are at. And it's a lot of fun. It's kind of a hobby, especially if you're in the SEC or the South or really anywhere. You love the sport and you love, you go through that experience. And so now you have an opportunity recognizing a dramatic problem in the country with college sports, with NIL. But now I'm a policymaker. And so, I think everyone has understood and says the same thing, that college sports right now reminds them of the Wild West. And indeed it is. I mean, you've got, ever since the Supreme Court allowed the payment for student athletes, you have attorneys general suing one way in one state and another way in another. And, there's just this massive patchwork of laws and regulations and court rulings and state legislatures doing their thing. And so everyone kind of recognizes the same problem, from the students to the parents to the coaches and even the institutions themselves, that this is on an unsustainable path. And, Congress has needed to act for a long time and now seems to be taking steps to do so.
Do you feel that it's necessary for the health of this sport to maintain where it's come and maybe even continue to grow to the rates that it has the last 5, 10, 15, 20 years, for Congress to be involved as heavily as maybe it appears they will be, or at all in the near future? Is this something that has to take place?
Well, I think it does. And right now, what you see right now is that there are no rules, right? And to the extent that the NCAA or a conference or a school tries to impose rules or a framework, they're sued, they're challenged. You're seeing schools have to make financial decisions, unfortunately. I mean, the footballs and the basketballs of the world are always going to be fine, but they're having to make financial decisions on non-revenue generating sports, on whether they're going to continue those. And so you're hearing this collective cry in some of our hearings. We've heard from student athletes, we've heard from coaches, and of course institutions and conferences. Really the same thing, which is Congress must act. And I think this bill does a really good job of not overreaching. Congress sometimes takes a sledgehammer where it doesn't need to. I think this is it's a bipartisan product, but it's a very measured product. There were a lot of crazy ideas out there that people had that maybe they wanted to include in this product, and it's just not. This is a very skinny product, but it allows, I think the big thing is it preempts state laws that states are kind of doing their own thing. But it really gives oxygen to the sports to kind of craft their own framework. There's some general guidelines that are in the bill. Most of the provisions in the bill are actually already in the House settlement. Of course, that lawsuit was finalized a couple weeks ago. So this is a great way, the very measured approach to really rein in this Wild West kingdom that we see in college sports right now.
So the SCORE Act would set federal standards for student athletes to get paid off their name, image, likeness, and would nationalize standards for student athlete pay. Do you see an avenue around collective bargaining and employment status outside of this? Is there a way for us to avoid that and continue having these sports that we love so much be successful?
Yeah, well, this is in the bill that students would not be classified as employees of the university. That's huge, right? I mean, you think about the parameters of that. If that were to come to fruition, all of a sudden the athletic department budget just doubled. You've got workers' compensation that would trigger, that would hurt dramatically state budgets. And so there's a whole, we even heard from so many athletes, they're like, we don't want the employee-employer relationship. We just don't. We want the coach student-athlete relationship. We don't want to be considered an employee. And we heard from any number of athletes in various sports saying really the same thing. There's a very small minority of people out there that exist that want it, but most people say they don't want that stuff. And so this bill prohibits that student athletes would not be considered employees of the university.
And is the prevention of further legal action maybe the most important part of all of this? When you referenced it just a little bit earlier, that, and I say this all the time, Congressman, when people say, why don't we just do this? How do we try this? My immediate response is lawsuit. You're going to get sued. And so you've had that conversation with so many athletes that say, we don't want the employer-employee status, but there are going to be the limited few that want to challenge this in court, and there's a lot of it that still looks like it's not going to be able to hold up.
Well, I think with this particular bill, it does provide some of that liability shield, obviously, and I think that's important. When again we go back to the budgets of athletic departments, if you look at the first place to cut when rubber meets the road, it's going to be the non-revenue generating sports. These are things like equestrian or track and field or lacrosse or wrestling. These things are important to protect the Olympic sports specifically. And so that limited liability, I think, is a key component of this, but setting the framework out there that this is actually codified, that this is part of the legal apparatus of the United States. It's kind of hard to go around that. I mean, people could try, but again, right now where we're operating is that these conferences and schools and even players, are trying to do the right thing, but you've got some players that want an 8th year of eligibility on their basketball scholarship. It's just ridiculous. I mean, and they're suing over it, right? And so, we've got a Van Wilder of college sports trying to stay in school forever. You just can't continue down that path. And so this bill provides a little bit of that surety, some stable foundation for people to rest. Of course, conferences and schools and everybody should craft their own rules related to this around the bill itself. But it is a good step forward to kind of limit the chaos. And I think that's what we're hearing most from our constituents and everybody involved.
Congressman Fry, thank you so much for the time today. Greatly appreciate it. There are a lot of us that are just not even close to being educated enough to understand a lot of what's happening behind the scenes in college sports right now, but you gave us a little bit of a peek behind the curtain. We appreciate your time and look forward to catching up soon.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.